the best name ever.
Yeah. You just see a Wookiee on the tab. I gotta give that a shot.
I gotta try that.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Longley's Line Podcast. I am your host, Stephen Longley. Remember to like, follow, subscribe, all of the social medias. Stephen Longley for me, Longley's Line for the show, Lightstyle Studio for the studio here, along with a special shout out to Brewers Cabinet for sponsoring our drinks today. If you're in the Reno area, just give them a try. If you like beer, you like food, they've got a little bit of everything for you. And as you guys know, we bring on different variations of people from all across the entertainment world, and today is no different. Today, I have Mike and Dylan from Horror Nerds Production. Mike, Dylan, thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Before we get rolling on anything, go ahead and promote all of your social medias, wherever you want anybody to find you, things like that.
Yeah, so we're just under Horror Nerd Productions on Facebook and Instagram. We've got a Twitter, but the Twitter is Horror Dads with a Z production because Horror Nerd has sort of combined efforts with some other guys across the country.
Okay.
And we're all dads, so we just decided to make this sort of umbrella company. So we joined with Gray Sky Pictures with a guy named Joshua Brucker and an actor named Hunter Nino. And so they're out of, Joshua's in Chicago, Illinois,
Okay.
and Hunter is over in Detroit, Michigan. And then we've got us out here in Nevada, kind of making up the Horror Dads. But Horror Nerd is our sort of locally based thing, even though we release the movies under both banners. It's been a little confusing to people. I think they think it's two separate things, but if you find the Dads or the Nerd, we're one and the same.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then, so to start out, how did you two meet? How did this kind of get started?
Well, I'll let Mike. It's a funny story. I'll let Mike tell the story here.
Yeah, well, so I was doing some stage acting in Virginia City, and I really loved it. It was fantastic, but it was taking up a little bit too much of my time. I was, going to rehearsals it was 4 hours a day, 3 times a week, so I didn't really have a life aside from that and work. So I decided to quit stage acting and try my hand in movies. And so I went on Facebook and I saw an audition for the role of a mercenary in this movie called The Flock. And in my old life, I was a U.S. Army Green Beret, so I was like, well, I was kind of a mercenary, so let me go audition for that. If I don't get that role, maybe I should quit acting.
Right.
So I went and auditioned, and I nailed the role. I met Dylan, and him and I, man, we just bonded and worked very, very well together. And after The Flock finished filming, he asked me if I wanted to be part of more movies with him, and I said yes. And it's been a great relationship since.
And here we are today.
Here we are
Right?
today.
From
It was funny too when we did the audition. I'm sitting there at a table. It is totally different for me. We were doing like an actual table read, and we had these people up in front of us, and we're throwing out, scenarios. Like if you were in this situation, now improv for us or whatever. And I'm sitting there and I'm telling who I didn't know at the time was a Green Beret. I just thought he was Mike, an actor. So I'm telling the whole group of them up there, when we're on set, don't worry. We got some like airsoft guys, that'll come in and they'll probably be able to make sure everybody's acting natural. And Mike kind of gets this smirk and he's like, I'm a former Green Beret. And I was like, oh, well, you're hired no matter what. And we don't need those guys now. And I'm actually embarrassed that I thought about that before even asking anybody's background. So, it was just one of those things where I'm like, okay, well, we don't need the airsoft guys.
Yeah.
We've got the real deal. So let's just use his talents.
telling Gordon Ramsay how to cook, and he's over in the back, and you can't tell it's him. Guys, remember the salt. Let's go.
He's the Gordon Ramsay of gunslinging.
He's just like, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'll teach everybody. So what were you doing a part of that? So he was auditioning for it. What position were you at?
So I wrote and directed the movie.
Okay.
Basically, The Flock was like a redo. The first movie I ever did was called The Devil's Children. It's on Tubi. Don't watch it. You could watch it. I get paid for it, but don't watch it. It's terrible. And so The Flock was like my sort of, my revenge against myself for making that first movie. I had written this big script, and COVID hit, and I thought most people they're out of work right now, or there's a lot of people teleworking. I think people have some time on their hands, so it was like, this might be the time to go make a movie. I'm looking at the script, and I'm like, bro, you can't film this. Like, you don't have half of what you need to make this movie. So there was a scene that I had cut from the original Flock script that had this group of teens that were partying, and they mess around with like a seance, and they sort of like allow this demon to come in. And then from there, like, these church-funded mercenaries start hunting this demon down, and then these kids kind of cross paths with them in this whole movie. So I had cut the scene with the kids because I thought, we could just jump into the movie like after the party scene, and we don't need all that. So I thought, since I can't make the Flock right now, I don't have the resources, why don't you just film that cut scene as its own little short movie? And that one was doable. So I filmed this god-awful, like, hour-long thing that it's painful for me to even watch because I see so many things. I'm like, wow, I can't even believe I allowed that to happen, which I think every creative does.
Yeah. You look back at your old work and you're like, why did I do that?
Oh, it's just, it's cringy, right?
Yeah.
So as soon as that one was done, and it somehow miraculously found distribution, there was like a niche group of people that enjoyed this movie somehow. All I could think of was like, how do I make people forget this one as fast as possible and go film the one I actually want to do?
Yeah.
So I basically used all of the stuff that I had acquired and learned making that movie to just fast track making the Flock. And so I brought in the same girl that had helped with the production of the first one, and she knew a lot of actors in town, and we did the casting call, and then that's when Mike showed up. And yeah, like he said, and then from there we had realized how easy we worked together, so it became kind of a no-brainer where like Mike was going to be it's like if I'm Tim Burton, he's going to be Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
He's just going to be the go-to guy that's going to be in everything now.
Yeah, which I think is kind of what every actor from the acting standpoint kind of hopes for. You find somebody that you blend with really well, that you can either be the main guy or you're one of the reoccurrings that keep coming in, like Scorsese and Robert De Niro, where something comes in, you kind of just blend really well together. And after The Flock comes around, what was the next movie? Or did you have like a slew of movies that you were writing and it's like, okay, we're going to try this, and then for this one it's like that? Or was it just kind of we're doing one at a time? Pretty
much one at a time. I had, even before I made anything, I had always wanted to do like a Bigfoot thing. Here's the funny thing though, and I'll totally like dox myself here. I don't believe in Bigfoot at all, like at all.
Right.
But I've always been fascinated by it. It's like the whole cryptid thing is super cool to me. And so after The Flock was done, and I realized, okay, Mike's like the dude that I could work with again. No brainer. This will be easy. Was it at the premiere that I brought it up? Or
no,
right
it
before?
was before that. It was in a messenger.
Okay,
Yeah,
so he hadn't
Facebook
even
Messenger.
seen The Flock yet. This dude's in my movie, hasn't even seen the final product, and I'm already telling him like,
Yeah.
well, you tell this one because this is funny too. Cause
Yeah, so he hits me up and he's like, Mike, man, we work really well together and I want to do more stuff with you. I have this passion project that I've been thinking about, and I want to call it Tahoe Joe. It has to do with the Sasquatch in the Sierra Nevadas. And it's going to be like a mockumentary. Are you in? And I was thinking, bro, Bigfoot, like, that's kind of cheesy. I was like, but you know what? I'm in. I'm in a movie.
Yeah.
So let's do it. Yeah. And so I tell him that I'm in, and within like a day or two, he sends me like the first 2 minutes of the movie that he filmed.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, wow, you know what? This is actually pretty good. I'm definitely in. And then so we just went on from there, and he asked me to actually co-direct. And so from then on, just constant, just going back and forth. And as it turns out, we actually have sort of the same movie-making brain, and which is amazing. So we'll have a lot of the same ideas and stuff like that, and just, they might be a little bit different.
Sure.
And so we hash everything out, we talk through everything, and basically whatever makes sense is the way we go with. And sometimes we'll shoot stuff, 2 different ways, and then we'll think about it and we'll go with whatever makes the most sense. Yeah, so then we started filming Tahoe Joe. Basically, it was just a couple of bros out in the woods doing our thing, and it was just a blast.
Yeah.
And so, he was like, "Yeah, I need this character, I need this character," and then I was like, "Well, I got a guy for this, I got a guy for that," and then so I started reaching out to my actual real life friends and family that I know that we would absolutely get along with on set and stuff like that, would be really easy to work with. And it just, magic was created.
Took off from there.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That was our big thing with Tahoe Joe, that pretty much everybody, when the movie came out, it's a Bigfoot movie, but it's much more of, it's almost like a buddy cop movie.
Okay.
Because the movie is more of a mystery as to like what happened to this guy that Mike. We play ourselves in the movie, so like the movie version of Mike has this guy that he knew from running these. What are they like? What is that?
Yeah, in real life, I was running these events for this company called GoRuck. And it's basically endurance events based off of military special operations training.
Okay.
So I would take folks out for 12 hours or so and just beat them down with 100-pound sandbags, exercises. But I would also teach them stuff like survival skills, military history, tactics, spycraft, really cool stuff. And so I used that as part of our story. And so I mentioned that a guy that I ran through one of these events, he went looking for Bigfoot in the Sierra Nevadas, and he got taken, he vanished, and his son needed help, so his son contacted me.
Okay.
So we ran with that.
So it's a real life story of stuff that you've heard that you've actually dealt with before.
Kind of. So basically, what we
sense.
did was we wanted to make the movie feel as realistic to our actual lives as possible. And it's funny because even my wife Juliana, for the longest time, literally thought Mike and I were making like an actual Bigfoot documentary. And she's like, "You guys are really like out looking for Bigfoot." And I'm like, "No, it's fiction. We're just playing ourselves." And she could not quite understand what was going on. She thought that she married the biggest nerd like ever, and that me and Mike were literally out trying to find Bigfoot, and not realizing that it was like, no, this is all part of the story. Like we're just trying to make it feel realistic with obviously this kind of supernatural element that'll happen later.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fun because real things would happen while we were filming, and we would just find ways to integrate it organically. So we were out filming like the day we're out to film our big kind of final sequence. We've been talking about throughout the movie, we got a drone, and the drone's going to give awesome footage. And what better way to find Bigfoot than having a drone, and can be the eyes in the sky. The friggin' drone malfunctions like right into the filming day and completely breaks.
Yeah.
We had one shot of it flying and then crashing. And so we're like, well, what do we do? We've just lost a big plot point. So instead of freaking out, we're like, wait a minute, we didn't lose a plot point. We gained a plot point. Now our drone is crashed. Let's say that there are government jammers up here that stop these from flying. Now we have a government conspiracy angle on why Bigfoot's being hidden away.
Yeah.
Boom. We rolled with it, and it just took off from there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we do our movies is we'll just take real life stuff and integrate them in. And we just happen to be one of our biggest skills, I think, is we can think quick on the fly. And I think when you're making a movie that doesn't really have any money at all behind it, you just have to be resourceful.
Yeah.
And that means rolling with what you got.
Yeah. I think it helps too, because a lot of the times when you're on a movie set, nothing goes according to plan. Everybody wants it to, and everyone has something laid out, but then as soon as you get everything rolling, okay, we've got to set up this shot here. The sun's not right. This isn't right. We've got to do this. We've got to do that. But if you can roll with the punches, it kind of makes everything a little bit easier. And I like when you said your wife actually thought you were going out looking for Bigfoot. And imagine, honey, no, we're doing a mockumentary kind of thing. But if we saw Bigfoot out
Yeah.
in the wild,
Yeah,
we've got it on camera. So it's, we're going to
joked
take
about
off
that.
either way.
Yeah.
we did joke. We're like, what if we actually do find something out there? It's like,
Either way, we're taking off.
yeah, exactly. We got a movie whether we run into a real one or not.
Yeah,
So.
but then as you're recording everything, it's nice high definition. It looks really good. The second Bigfoot shows up.
Oh
it
yeah, it
turns
would.
off.
Yeah.
Which
Turns off.
it's very funny you say that because our Bigfoot suit was so hilarious looking in the daylight that we decided to only show him at night. And I purposely muddied up the footage and made it all grainy and put glitches over it because it was like straight up falling apart by the end of the night. I mean, it had like sticks in it. The back's falling off.
Yeah.
The actor that's wearing it's trying to keep the pants up. I mean, it was a hilarious thing. But we filmed it to look like night shot
Okay.
in the pitch black with just a flashlight and throw a couple of glitches on it, playing with our whole, hey, the government's jamming signals up here. And boom, suddenly we've got a Bigfoot that you kind of get the Jaws effect on. You know he's out there. You only get fleeting glimpses. And we barely showed you what we wanted to show. And it looks actually pretty decent the way we did it.
Yeah.
But that's what happens when you make a whole Bigfoot movie for $800. That's literally all we spent.
Yeah.
And the movie's probably distributors and streamers, unfortunately, have taken us to the cleaners over that because at the time, we didn't really have any other route. So, the movie's made a lot of money, but we haven't really seen much of it yet. It's funded the second one that we're working on now, which is
Yeah.
kind of the dream. And the second one, it has a significantly higher budget than the first one. So we have like a really Hollywood level Bigfoot suit now. But yeah, I mean, our little $800 Bigfoot movies probably yielded, rough guess, we're thinking over 10 grand, if not
Easily
more.
over 10 grand.
Easily
Nice.
over 10 grand.
Yeah.
Good.
And so I'm like, hey, if we can make movies for that cheap and have those kind of results all the time, sign me up.
Yeah. Imagine the big budget.
Exactly right. Which
Yeah.
we're just waiting on. We keep having fantasies, and someday we'll get there. But
Yeah.
for now, I'll keep making Bigfoot suits in my garage. And this new one, though, we're so excited about getting this new one
Pristine.
on camera. Oh, it's the guy who sculpted the face. Actually sculpted the orcs from the Will Smith movie Bright when they were like
Okay.
cops with
Yeah.
So he did all those.
Wow.
And so we have like a legit costume. It's really cool.
Yeah.
So Tahoe Joe 2 is going to be rad.
That's kind of what you want too. It's like even though you only had that small budget and it's taking off, but not in the way that you kind of hope, right? It's still something where it's like, well, we did this. It's gaining some traction, and you can continue to keep going because that's
Yeah.
kind of the creative mindset. How all of us are. We all have the big dreams of, well, like mine is, well, when I get into acting, I can take trips all the time and we'll be in cool places. Like I'll have an annual pass to Disneyland. Like I don't have that kind of money right now,
Right.
But then you get other little things where you're like, this is what's going to keep it going. So now
Exactly.
you've got kind of the backing behind the Tahoe Joe. Where do you go from there? What's the next step?
So after when we did the Flock, there was always kind of another story I wanted to tell in that universe. Mm-hmm. And so after we did Tahoe Joe, and it did really well for us. I mean, it is the one that everybody knows us from. And there's a couple of found footage groups that we joined on Facebook. One of them's got like 50,000 people in it. It's like a big group, and you want to talk about instant marketing. You post in there, hey, I got a new found footage movie, because you don't get that many found footage movies. It's not one of those things that there's constantly good ones coming out.
Yeah.
It's like for every good found footage movie, there's like 20 really bad ones that come out, and they're usually just direct streaming, or sometimes they go, people will just make them and drop them on YouTube or whatever. Well, the fans are super hungry for stuff. And Tahoe Joe, for us, I didn't know if it was going to be any good. In fact, I was sweating bullets putting it out there. I thought, what if we do this and there's a really famous found footage movie called Exists that the Blair Witch Project director had done later on. Mm-hmm. The movie's got like a $2 million budget. I mean, it's like a legit Bigfoot movie, really cool costume. You have the Blair Witch Project director's name. I mean, he's already got like the most famous found footage movie of all time. One of the most profitable horror movies ever in terms of what they spent versus what it made.
That's what I was going to ask, if that kind of was an inspiration for it.
Big time. So I'm thinking the whole time, like, great, I'm about to put me and Mike out there in this Bigfoot movie, and we have that as kind of like the bar that's been set.
Mm-hmm.
And we're listed in there with that movie all the time. People will be
Yeah.
like, hey, if you like this one, you should check out Tahoe Joe. It's a different kind of Bigfoot movie, but we really loved it because, you know, Dylan and Mike's relationship together on there, like, they all talk about, like, the acting is so good in the movie. And I'm like, well, it wasn't really acting.
We're just hanging out.
It's just us hanging out.
Yeah.
But it comes through. So we knew that, like, Tahoe Joe was our brand. But I had this yearning to go back to that universe of the flock thing. And I love the idea of these mercenaries that, like, hunt demons. I was like, we can go somewhere further with this. But that found footage group, they have what they think are, like, all these gatekeeping rules, right? Like, you can't have music in it because it's supposed to be real footage. And you can't do this and you can't do that. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't do stuff? Like, just because you guys are fans, you're trying to tell creatives that they can't do things. So, me kind of being always kind of a punk and a rebel growing up and doing things my own way, I'm like, I'm going to go back to that flock universe. I'm going to make a found footage movie that's about these mercenaries, and it's going to have a full soundtrack, and it's going to be fully edited, and it's going to be like a cheesy 80s action movie. Like, I'm going to go as hardcore I can with 80s vibes. Like, the effects are going to look like they're from the 80s. The dialogue is going to be corny and over the top. The villains are going to be, like, ridiculous. So we did it. It's like a massive middle finger to the group.
Yeah.
We even got Vernon Wells, who played in Mad Max 2. He's the dude with the red mohawk. Mm-hmm. And he's in Commando. He gets the pipe through the chest or whatever. Vernon is in our movie.
That's cool.
And so I'm like, yeah, what better way to make an 80s movie than go get, like, an 80s icon and cast him and get him in this movie.
Yeah.
So we did that one, and it's been well received for the right crowd. Now, there are some straight up haters.
Oh, yeah.
They're so mad at that movie, right? They're so mad. But we always knew we were going to go back to Tahoe Joe as well. Like, we know that was kind of the one that if we're going to keep funding those fun projects, because Ghost, that movie's called Ghost, by the way. Ghost for me was like my ultimate childhood fantasy come to life. Like, all those movies I watched on VHS that I was not supposed to watch, my mom would be like, no, it's got, you know, too many boobs and too many F-bombs or whatever, and I'm like 10, and I'm like, no, I have to watch
I want
Arnold.
to watch all of it.
Oh, yeah, it's like if Arnold Schwarzenegger or Dolph Lundgren or Jean-Claude Van Damme's in it, like, I have to watch it.
Yeah.
So Ghost was my personal kind of, like, homage to that. But we wanted to go back to Tahoe Joe, too, so that is on the plate. And after that, we're sort of... Mike and I are going to keep doing these mockumentary things where we hunt for cryptids and all that. We've got some ideas. But I think we might tackle a fully original thing that's not connected to the Flock universe. It's not connected to Tahoe Joe, I should say. I think that we're going to try something like totally different. And I've got some plans to give Mike a role that's very opposite of Mike in real life, to really give him a fun role to play.
Yeah.
Kind of a snooty Hollywood actor type.
Always like those ones where everybody, like those certain actors are typecast in a certain thing. You know, like there's Hector that's in all the Fast and Furious movies. His name is Cholo, you know, like that's all he does. And then I'm sure you could put that guy in something outlandish and he would rock it, you know? So then doing Mike in something like maybe he owns a barbershop or something crazy that, you know?
I'm going to make him like a fully, you know, wimpy Hollywood actor who has the persona of being the tough guy, but then like, when the cameras aren't rolling, he's like very much like, where's my Evian water? I need a blanket. It's cold.
Where's my kale milkshake?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it'll be a lot of fun for people that have been used to seeing, and for mostly fun for Mike because he'll get to really kind of ham it up.
Yeah.
And I just, as much as I love doing those projects that we've had the connections to and we're doing sequels to and all that, I am excited to try something different. And it'll actually be the first project I've done that isn't something that I wrote. A buddy of mine is a horror author. His name is Brent Abel, and he actually is letting us adapt a book that he did.
Okay.
So I'm going to keep all the details under wraps for now, but that will be something that we do after Tahoe Joe 2 that'll be fun, just to really kind of push our filmmaking in a different direction and then allow everybody to try some new things out. And I'm actually going to shoot it a little different than I've done in the past too. So even for myself, it'll be fun.
Yeah. Have you thought to do around the lanes of, like with Universal, how they're coming out with like Frankenstein or mummies or things like that, how you've already got the Bigfoot conspiracy seeing things? Have you thought about like, a Chupacabra or Slender Man or
Yes.
following those lines?
So I brought up the horror dads earlier. So we've built what we call the Cryptidverse with those guys.
Okay.
And so Josh Brucker did a Mothman movie last year.
Okay.
And he did a movie that's coming out in a few months called The Woodman, about mysterious, like, feral humans living in the national parks. Unbelievably cool movie. Mike's seen it. I got to be a producer. Well, actually, you're a producer on it as well.
Yeah.
And Mike may or may not have a cameo in it.
Might have a cameo in it.
We'll just leave it at that. But it's unbelievably good. They had the biggest budget that any of us have ever worked on.
Nice.
They cast L.C. Holt. He was one of the bad guys from that slasher movie You're Next, where they were wearing like the animal masks.
Oh, yeah.
So L.C.'s in it. It's really cool. They got one of the main actresses was just in The Mutilator 2, which isn't out yet, but The Mutilator was like a super famous 80s slasher movie.
Okay.
That suddenly got a sequel like 30 years later, and Anna Clary is in it as a lead, and Josh got her, I think, right around the time she got cast for that one. So the great thing for us is Mutilator 2 is getting like a lot of press, and so Josh gets to sort of piggyback off that.
Yeah.
Like, if you like that, we have Anna in our movie coming
She's
out
also
soon.
in this one.
Right.
Check it out. Yeah.
So The Woodman and Mothman and Tahoe Joe all have some connections. Tahoe Joe 2 is going to push those connections even further.
Okay.
And then there's some plans later on down the line to even have more movies connected. So we've kind of built an interconnected universe already with those guys.
Nice. Okay.
And we're actually projected to do stuff with them. Oh my gosh, I think until at least like 2026, we've got stuff with them where they'll keep this thing going.
Yeah. Keep the universe expanding.
Horror Dads is the Marvel universe of the found footage realm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got a lot of connected films already, and we're the only ones doing that too, which is really neat because some of the heavyweights in found footage, guys that have worked with millions of dollars in their movies, have actually messaged myself or Josh. We've talked to those guys, and they think it's really cool what we're doing, even though it's on a really tiny scale. We're at least getting their attention that we're trying something different. And I think that it's kind of the way to go. I think people love piecing things together and seeing. One of the fun things we're doing too is our stuff doesn't necessarily play out linearly. So if we put a movie out in 2025, it doesn't mean that movie is in that part of the timeline.
Okay.
That movie might take place like before Tahoe Joe took place, and so it's kind of fun to let the audience see where the clues put everything together too.
Because you see people now, everybody loves Easter eggs.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Seeing things happen. You watch a Disney movie or a Marvel movie, and they're like, "Oh wait, they're in this movie. Oh, that means it's got to be connected in that way."
Right.
So following those lines in a horror genre is something I don't think people have seen before.
No, not really. And for us, it might be really subtle as like a quick line of dialogue that mentions a town or something that somebody had in their movie, or a character, or it could be super blatant. Like there's a recurring character in these movies named, the character's name is Ben Logan. He's played by Hunter Nino, who's one of the Horror Dads guys. And he's like a forest ranger. And so Ben Logan pops up in all the movies, and he has a big role in The Woodman. But it's fun to look back at some of the other stuff and see how he fits in. And he and Mike are kind of this connective tissue that will take us further.
Yeah, a lot like the like Adam Sandler universe.
Yes.
He's got the same thing where it's just one name like Levine or Valentine or something. You're like, does O'Doyle rule in this one?
Yeah, right. Well, I actually just watched Hubie Halloween, and they mention O'Doyle in that one.
Yeah.
And then Ben Stiller plays the same, what was he, like a nurse or something?
Yeah, the male nurse
Yeah,
in
the
Happy
male
Gilmore.
nurse. Yeah, and I didn't realize, but he's in Hubie Halloween as like the same asshole, nurse guy. And
Yeah.
I thought, what a fun way to connect Happy Gilmore in that.
Yeah, where they keep everything connected, like they have it from, I now pronounce you Chuck and Larry, where some of the names are the same as the other ones, and you don't realize it until later on, and you rewatch the movie, and you're like, that's what keeps the audiences coming
Yeah.
back. So having that little bit, and even just, like little lines of dialogue where people can see it and come in and be like, yes, I remember that from Tahoe Joe or something.
Yep, that's kind of what we want to do. And then Mike and I want to we're going to keep these mockumentaries going too, like you said, with like Chupacabra type stuff, whatever. We feel like we have a fun X-Files vibe going where we could start doing those one-off movies where we tackle like a different cryptid. But we want to stay local too. Like we really there's a lot of great myths kind of around Nevada and California. And so really where we go, I don't know with it all, but there's plenty to choose from. And I was just reading the other day about the Pyramid Lake water babies, which is terrifying. And then there was
never
like
heard
giants.
of the water babies?
I had never heard of that.
The water babies. Because I have lived here for, like 20 some odd years. So when I was in high school, we would all teenagers go out and just get drunk at Pyramid Lake. And then it's like, did you hear those water babies? The what? The water babies. Go ahead, go take a look. And then as soon as you walk to the edge of the lake, shut the fuck up. Stop. It's one of those that is a local legend, which is fun.
Yeah.
So you like tackling all of the local, especially too here in Reno, the like environment is always different too. You can go up to Verdi and be in a completely different area than going out to Pyramid.
Yep.
And that gives you different takes on things. So with everything interconnected, kind of asking back, even though it's called Horror Nerds, have you thought of diving into a different genre or maybe something similar yet different? Or is it kind of horror is the number one on the call sheet and then everything else kind of comes along with it? Or have you thought about maybe diving into different things down the line or any plans for anything like that?
So I always tell Mike, like, take any roles you can get. I mean, it's like you have Mad Wife in town and plenty of other companies. So it's like, take whatever. And he's done some other genres before. He was in, what was the kind of comedy one that they did? Comedy action one?
Target List.
Target List, yeah. So as far as like Mike is an actor, I'm always like, you don't have to just do horror stuff, with me or whatever. Myself as a filmmaker, I'll probably always stick around that genre. It's my favorite. It's the one I know. I have like an unbelievably almost embarrassing amount of like horror movie knowledge and stuff. So for me, it's easy to get into that because it feels like home to me.
Yeah.
But having said that, it is fun to do what we did like with Tahoe Joe, where we do interject. Tahoe Joe is actually like a pretty funny movie. We have a lot of humor in it too. And then it gets scary when we need it to get scary. So I think one kind of cool thing that we do is we don't necessarily say like we're going to make a terrifying movie and everybody has to be very serious all the way through.
Yeah.
We like to have fun and we want the audience to say like that was a fun horror movie. I will watch movies with like gore and all that. I'm fascinated by the mechanics behind it. I love like, if I'm watching Saw or something, I'm like, how did they do that effect? That's incredible. But I don't personally want to make like disgusting movies like that either.
Sure.
I want to make movies that my 10-year-old could watch.
Yeah.
And so Mike and I actually try to not have like a lot of F words in our movies and stuff. That's the one mistake I did. Okay, back to The Devil's Children. I let a bunch of like 20-year-olds improv a bunch of scenes. And the first two things they talked about, how many times can we drop the F-bomb and whatever, and sex. It's like every conversation went back to sex and then the word fuck. And it's like all they did for an hour.
Yeah.
To where it gets to the point where I'm like, what were you even supposed to be talking about?
Like we don't even know.
Yeah. And so we tried really hard sort of starting with Tahoe Joe. Well, even with the Flock, there's not a lot of it. I did try to limit to like 10 total F words. I was trying to cut it back. But even with Tahoe Joe, I don't think we have... There might be one that's very...
Tahoe Joe, there's one, but it's like...
It's very quiet.
Very, very quiet.
Yeah.
Keeps it at PG-13
yes.
rating.
Yeah.
And then Ghost, we had like 2, I think, total.
Was it 2?
or maybe only
think
one.
it's 1.
It might just be
Yeah,
one, and
1.
it was like in a very kind of, intense moment.
Yeah, it fits.
Yes.
It's
Okay.
needed. It's not like a
For
filler
emphasis.
word.
Yeah.
You know?
Where it's natural. If that's happening
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
somebody, then
Because I mean,
That's
the
kinda
Devil's
what they
Children,
say.
people were using that word as a comma, almost.
Yeah.
We wanted like if we're gonna do it, let's
like we're in
make
New
it.
York or something.
Yeah, right. We're like, let's make it hit, and it's like I work on a military base. That word is I use it myself all the time out there. It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
But I didn't necessarily want to bring that into my art because again, I wanted to make it accessible. So we try not to make our movies like overly disgusting with gore and all that. And yeah, at some point I might want to make like a very hard hitting horror movie that has some very adult themes that wouldn't be appropriate for a kid.
Right.
But for me, I can seek those movies out because people are making those movies and I can watch those. But when I go to make stuff, I want to be laughing on set and I want to be having a good time figuring out like, hey, when would be a good time to throw a joke in here, like some good comedic timing. And then it's also like Mike's been there when I've had my stepson with me on the set. And I want to feel comfortable with him there that he can watch me make movies and he doesn't see like, dad making awful things or exploiting women or something by like, unnecessary nudity and stuff. It's like as much as the next guy, throw on a 80s movie that has boobies everywhere. I'm going to love it. I'll watch it all day long.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily want to cast a bunch of local girls in town and be like, cool, let's get their tops off.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that's a great way for us to
It's
build
not
a reputation.
necessary for the story.
No.
Yeah.
And we're going to be working with a couple of new actresses for Tahoe Joe too. Mm-hmm. And we didn't want to put anybody in a role where it was like, hey, let's go reach out to these girls for the first time and then be like, cool, is there a way we could get them in bikinis,
Yeah.
We just didn't want to do that. I feel like, out of respect for them, out of respect for the craft, and then, just me being married and stuff, I don't need to do that kind of stuff. And we might take a hit. There might be some people that are like, oh, your movies are a little tame for this and that or whatever. But for me, I'm like, I make the movies I want to make unabashedly. There is I don't apologize for anything, any decisions we make.
Yeah.
And I think that we've made some pretty good stuff just making it how we want to make it.
Yeah. And having it where it's more geared towards adults, but letting kids come in for it, lets them ask questions too. Like me and my family, we always watch Bob's Burgers. Right?
That's so funny.
Just love it.
I love that
So
show.
every time a new one comes on, it's me and my wife and our daughter. And, she's my stepdaughter, but she comes in and she always asks us questions about things. So we're watching the show and it always makes us laugh and we love watching it. But it got a very serious tone to it. And as the serious tone was coming in, there was comedic timing in the background, like somebody saying something funny. So as you're feeling really intense into what's going on and you're getting kind of emotional, then something funny happens. And she goes, why did they do that? Like, if it was so sad and then they tried to make us laugh, and it was like, that's kind of the point, for you to be invested into what's going on, but to not make it as dramatic
Yeah.
as, if you're watching like Grey's Anatomy or something like that, where everything's so serious while things are going on, and having the kids ask questions like, why is he doing that? And then that guy starts laughing or something happens, where you can get kids involved into it too, with just simple questions,
I was always a big fan. I still think to this day, like the greatest sitcom of all time was Roseanne, because they showed like a real middle class family, and some of the stuff that they would bring up, it's like they weren't Full House where Dad was on TV and Uncle Jesse's in a rock band and they have all this money to go to Disneyland and all these shows were like, or like the Cosby Show where it was like all the kids were perfect and it was so annoying. Roseanne was like, her kids smoked pot and they found it in their drawer, or they were like failing classes. They weren't even going to school. They were having sex before they should have. And it just felt like they dealt with adult themes, but like you said, they had great comedic timing too. And I remember watching that with my family or with my parents when I was a kid. And I could laugh at stuff that the kids did because I got that humor part. It was funny.
Yeah.
But I know my parents could laugh when they would be talking about very real things like, how are we even going to make the mortgage this month because, Dan lost his job, or so, or something like that would happen. But then they would make light of the situation and they would laugh about it. And, it's like you kind of always knew that they were going to be okay because they were a family sticking together and you just fight through those times. And so I think even in my writing before I started making a lot of movies, I always found ways to interject humor into moments that maybe didn't always call for it. But humor for me has always been a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
I'm the worst person at funerals because I straight up want to laugh, and it's not because I think it's funny, but I just can't help it.
Yeah.
Or I want to crack a joke because it breaks the tension. And I noticed when we were doing Tahoe Joe, just improvising, even in the moments when it was really serious, my go-to was to say something funny, but we kind of rolled with it.
Yeah.
And that's just, that's our style. I think we have a unique style, and we just, that's how we go.
That's
think it
how my
works.
family is too.
It works.
Yeah. If it works, don't fix it. Just expand on it.
Yeah.
Build it up, because that's how my family is too. Like if we're going through hard times, it's a very serious moment, and then either I'm cracking a joke, my dad is, or we're laughing in a serious moment.
Yeah.
Which is kind of
It's healthy.
you have to do.
Yeah. You do. And so we have to be careful, though, when we do our movies, though. We always okay, we don't want to parody ourselves here. We don't want to get too far. And I think Tahoe Joe, for us, the reason that one worked, too, was that we found a really good balance. So we had a screening in my home. I grew up in Susanville, California, and the theater over there had a big event for us, and we got to show the movie on the big screen over there. So we had, I don't know how many people showed up for that.
Maybe 80?
Yeah, it was like a pretty good group, a pretty good
Yeah.
amount of people showed up. And it's terrifying to sit there in your hometown with a lot of people I grew up with watching a movie that not only you wrote and directed, but Mike and I are in it. So people, they're looking at us in the crowd, when they see us, and I'm like, oh God, what are they thinking?
Yeah.
So all I could think of the whole time was, are the jokes going to land? Are the scares going to land? Is this going to just be one of those oh no, they're laughing at the wrong parts and they're not laughing at the parts we wanted? And it was really cool because they were cracking up at the stuff we hoped they would laugh at. And then when the movie got serious, that theater was dead silent.
Yeah.
For this, there's a sequence in Tahoe Joe for about, I don't know, it's about 8 to 9 minutes of very serious stuff. And that theater was dead quiet. And I just remember, I was sitting there with the biggest grin. I'm like, it worked. Every joke landed. And the moments that we wanted them to get serious, people are invested now. And then there's one kind of pretty good jump scare in that part too, and the lady behind me, she lost it. Popcorn hit my neck, and I'm like, oh, this is so awesome for
Just a slow motion beaming of popcorn falling down you with a big grin on your face.
Oh, I was just living, cloud nine. And so that's one of those things that is it's always a terrifying thing as a filmmaker is the stuff that you find funny or find scary going to translate well.
Yeah.
And horror and comedy, they go hand in hand. It's there's I think it was Stephen King's son, Joe Hill, had talked about that link between the two. And he said that it's why when you're watching stuff like Monty Python, when the Black Knight is getting cut, and he's bleeding, and so much blood's flying everywhere, and you're laughing hysterically at violence, right?
Yeah.
But you don't get the same reaction when you're watching a Saw movie when somebody's limbs are getting twisted off, you're grossed out. But it's the same thing. It's limbs coming off, but the same chemical reaction is happening in the brain. Whether you're laughing at it or grossed out by it, you're still getting a rush because you're seeing visually. So there is a connection there, but it's just how it has to be handled very delicately.
How you present it.
Monty Python could have made that super graphic, and it could have been grossing people out to where this isn't funny at all. This is horrible to watch this guy get dismembered. Whereas Saw could have done the same thing. Saw could have had people getting their arms cut off and then so much blood flying out that you just start laughing hysterically at it. So there is a very, very delicate balance you have to find. And Ghost might have a few moments that miss the mark. I don't know. It's we knew that movie being so intentionally 80s, there was going to be that cheese factor where you as the filmmaker and the actors are taking yourselves very seriously, but you want the actors to laugh at it because it's in such an absurd situation. And so for me, it's I knew what we were going for, but like I say, you put that in a group of people who are fans, and there's like 50,000 of them in there just waiting for the next movie to drop. And I keep forgetting that the 80s was a long time ago now, and I talk like it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
And so a lot of them, when they're watching the movie, they might be 18, 19, 20 years old, and so they're watching it and they're like, what is this
Why
shit?
is this happening?
Yeah, like, what is this? This is so
How
ridiculous.
big is that guy's hair?
Yeah,
You know? Like,
Yeah.
see Swayze coming in with just, big old...
Right. And so
Big old
I'm
pompadour.
starting to learn that there's a generational thing, and that we're not going to always have the Tahoe Joe effect on everything we do. It's
Yeah.
just so then it just comes to like, well, now we're making movies because we wanted to make that, and we'll go back to the Tahoe Joes and give people what they want. But you have to do, and I stress this to any creatives that might be watching this or listening to us, is that you have to do what you want to do first, and don't worry about the audience for it.
Yeah.
Because the minute you worry about what they want, you've just lost your creativity.
You've got to take swings.
You have to. You absolutely have to.
Yeah.
And we've taken some swings.
Still super proud of Ghost though.
Oh, absolutely.
I love Ghost. Ghost
Yeah,
is
so
a
Ghost-
fun ride.
Yeah.
We were just at a film festival, or we played at a film festival. The Monster Channel, they're kind of a famous old school horror channel, and they have like the old midnight, Zombo type guy that comes on there. And so the Monster Channel ran a film festival, and Ghost was nominated for 13 awards.
Wow.
We won 6, including Best Film. I got Best Director. We took Best Cinematography, Best Sound, Best Actor for Michael,
Nice.
and Best Supporting Actor for Vernon Wells, who I talked to the other day, and he thought that was super cool. And so, yeah, I'm damn proud of it. And the right people,
Yeah.
that audience knew what we were going for. And when I talked to the showrunner for that festival, he said, he's like, our panel went crazy for your movie, because he's like, they grew up with that stuff. So they knew what you guys were doing, and they went nuts for it. And it showed. Being nominated for that many and taking home Best Film, we found our people.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to go submit that movie to like some kind of Los Angeles horror community that's used to seeing,
Right.
Hereditary or Midsummer type elevated horror stuff.
Yeah.
That's not our jam. That's not our... I like those movies, but we would have been laughed out of the building
Yeah.
showing something like that.
You're doing a parody-ish type movie with serious,
Basically,
like,
yeah.
Yeah.
serious
Yeah,
tones.
It's like a kind of a parody homage almost.
Yeah.
Is kind of how I would put it.
Yeah.
with Beverly Hills
Church-funded mercenaries hunting down demons with guns, and so you got to pause reality for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you should tell the story about the guy that you got in the exchange with.
Oh yeah. So we posted Ghost in that found footage group on Facebook, and one guy claps back at the post, talking about how it wasn't believable about how Ghost, my character, was killing the demons, and
Yeah, sure.
and I just made something off the top of my head. I was like, well, I consulted with a demonologist, and blah blah blah. It was like, and he said, when they're able to grab somebody, you can actually destroy them with bullets and blah blah blah. And this dude, he thought I was dead serious, and so he comes back and he starts talking to me about, I would really like to read the report from the demonologist. Blah, blah. I was like, bro, I just made that up.
Yeah.
Like it's a fantasy movie.
It's a movie.
It's like
He was
nobody
upset.
that you
Yeah.
actually know has actually legit fought a demon.
Yeah.
Stop the madness.
It's not like you come on there and say, well, my mom's a medium, so I can talk
Yeah.
like this. I can talk like this.
Yeah.
Okay, it's fine.
Yeah, he was. I'm reading this. I was on a little vacation with my family, and my phone's going nuts with notifications. So I'm like, oh, what's going on? And I see the first comment. I'm like, cool. More hate for the movie that we just dropped. And I'm reading, and I'm like, okay, this isn't even hate. This is like the weirdest criticism. This dude is mad because we're not realistically killing the demons that we've made here, because he's mad that bullets wouldn't kill a demon. And I'm like, so I jumped in and I'm like, hey, the bullets were blessed by holy water. And he's like, that can't happen. And I'm like, dude, okay, I don't even want to engage with you anymore.
Yeah.
Like, this is really the conversation we're having
It's
right
like, have
now.
you ever seen the show Supernatural?
Right.
Like, they battle demons and angels and gods, and turns out angels are kind of dicks and demons aren't that bad. And
Yeah.
then, like maybe watch
Pretty
something
sure they
else.
use a shotgun to get rid of
Yeah.
some entities in that show here and there too.
Yeah, it's like what? When was the last time you fought a demon? Well, I haven't. Then shut up, I have. It's on film.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really funny, and so that's we pretty much turn ourselves off to a lot of that stuff. It's like
Yeah.
if you're going to be a creative person, and you probably know anybody that's done stuff, you're always going to have detractors who say you should have done it this way, and it's
Yeah.
like, well, we put up the money to do it, we took the time to do it, we have the skill to do it. You just watched it. Why do I care at all what you think I
You
should have
gave
done?
me a click. This
Yeah.
is on you.
Yeah, it's like if you didn't like it, you didn't like it. Cool, I got paid. Every time you watch that movie on Tubi and the commercials come up, Daddy's getting paid,
Yeah.
and whether you hated it or not, I got paid.
That's when you tell him, you know what? Go and watch it 3 more times. Send it to your friends. Let me know what they think about it, and then turn off.
And
the
if they all
comments
hate
for
it,
them.
that's cool. Send it to everybody who will hate it.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Bummer.
And,
I
you know,
still
some
make
of these people that go in and watch some of our movies, they fail to realize that, man, we're just like regular dudes.
Yeah.
You know, we have families, we have actual full-time jobs. We don't have a bunch of investors and stuff like that. So the movies that we make, a lot of it's coming out of our pockets or funding from previous movies.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and then when we can shoot, it's a weekend here and there. It's a day here and there, you know. So
Yeah, I mean,
they
Ghost
fail
was,
to realize that stuff.
Yeah.
Ghost was our most expensive project to date, and it was like under $6,000,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah.
And it's like you're judging us up with movies that were made for $6 million. It's like it's not going to be like that. We're gonna have when we have a monster in our movie, it's gonna look like the old school rubber suit monster, which I'm so proud of. Our monster in Ghost is so awesome. And Toma,
yeah.
who was in Tahoe Joe, he was the big guy that goes missing in that movie. Toma's like 6'4",
Yeah,
big
6'4".
bodybuilder type guy.
Yeah.
Came in to play our monster in Ghost, and so he's this big giant presence, and it's like a full sculpted creature head, and he's got these big metallic gauntlets with big long fingers and a giant broadsword, and he's this awesome demon, and I was so happy for it. And then it's like, then I start reading some people like, it's like a guy in a rubber monster suit, and I'm like, bro, that's what I grew up with though. Like the movies I watched did not have computer animated creatures in them at all.
This isn't Marvel. Like we're not
Exactly.
CGIing everything. You got to take it with a grain of
Yeah,
salt.
I think-
Listen, I will always say the original Ninja Turtles movie looks a hell of a lot better than anything Michael Bay Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Oh, like
Yeah.
yes, thank
Yeah.
you.
So,
Even
so
though-
the practical effects, I'm all for it, man.
Yeah, because you can, it's like the old school Ninja Turtles. You see the rubber moving, but also it's a turtle that was trained by a rat
Yeah.
in a sewer. And you're upset.
Super real.
Yeah, you're upset. They're talking to you, and one really likes pizza. Like,
Yeah.
you've got to put a little bit of the imagination on there, which
Exactly.
a lot of people fail to do.
You know what? I'm totally taking this into Ninja Turtle realm right now. I did not know, and maybe this is common knowledge. I didn't know until like 4 weeks ago when I was watching the Ninja Turtles again, the original Jim Henson one, that Corey Haim was the voice of Donatello.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Ralph Mouth from Goonies, Corey Haim. I had no idea that was him. And I'm looking in the credits and I'm like, oh my God, I can hear it now. Like it's so blatant. How did
Yeah.
I never know that?
Yeah.
Now that you say that, I'm like, I don't think I knew that either.
You can actually see there's one point when, I don't know if it's Donatello or Michelangelo, one of them, my stepson saw it and we were laughing because we paused it. I'm telling you, the worst thing to happen to 80s movies was stuff being re-released in 4K or like ultra high def.
Oh,
because
yeah.
You can see everything that was wrong. At one point, the turtles are like yelling and you can see like a human mouth inside and it's hellish. It looks like the creepy alien mouth coming out.
Oh, God.
It's like, yeah, it's got a mini mouth inside. It's like super freaky.
This is what the radioactive thing did to you? It gave you 2 mouths?
Yeah.
No. It's like we were watching Singing in the Rain on HBO, and it's cool. It's nice. It's high 4K edition, but you get a close-up of Gene Kelly right here, and you can see how old he looks, and it's like the makeup did you no justice on this.
That's so funny.
They should have never released this in 4K.
Yeah,
Because then
I-
you see every bits and bobs of everything.
I think I think it was Oliver Stone or somebody had brought up that guys like Alfred Hitchcock, when they made movies back then, any of them, Orson Welles, whatever, they made their makeup and costume design was specifically tailored to the cameras they were using in black and white or whatever. So when they go into like upscale this stuff or like, hey, we're going to do a special colorized version, it wasn't meant to look like that.
Yeah.
So you're doing an injustice to why they made their decisions in the first place. I know that they were talking about doing some kind of an upscale on Psycho, and Universal said no.
Yeah.
There's a specific film grain that's there that makes that movie kind of have what it has, and if you take that away, they're saying you're going to actually have some very strange effects that Hitchcock never would have wanted to happen. It was going to have some kind of weird shadowing, and you're going to have some smoothness stuff that they didn't want.
Or the other thing too is that if it's in black and white, the person might be wearing like a bright yellow shirt because the white comes off, or they're in like a dark weird color, and then if you see it in color, you're gonna be like, the killer's wearing pink.
Well, like the blood in
it's a weird color.
blood in the bathtub was chocolate syrup.
Yeah.
Because he said it showed up so much better on black and white. So, it's going to look like she's taking a dump in the shower if you put color to it.
Like she just went to the first edition of Taco Bell, and now she's getting killed. She's had a rough day. She's had a tough time. But when we were talking to where you just realized the voice for the Ninja Turtle, we do that same thing in Disneyland for Star Tours. One of the robots that's there, it's voiced by Patrick Warburton. Krunk and Joe and all of that. So every time we walk by that, I will tell my kid, I'm like, that's Patrick Warburton. She goes, I know, you said that already. I'm like, listen, it's Patrick Warburton.
He will always be David Puddy from Seinfeld.
David Puddy, exactly.
David Puddy.
Yep.
These are the best. So now that you guys are going through, Ghost just released, what is next? I know you're talking about Tahoe Joe 2. Kind of as general of a question that you've already kind of answered. What's next for you guys going forward now?
Well, Tahoe Joe 2 is essentially like, I would say it's like end of pre-production, but sort of also started production. We're getting some of our early B-roll stuff rolling in now. We will officially launch our production on it November? Is it late mid-November we set that date?
Actually, you know what? Some stuff is going to be filmed within the next couple weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then we're filming some pretty big scenes beginning of November.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we'll film that stuff all the way through January, February probably. So we hope to have that one out by the summer of next year. Bigfoot, this is going to be Bigfoot in the snow, which really nobody does. They'll do Abominable Snowman, but we thought, okay, first of all, blood on the snow just looks so cool.
Yeah.
But Bigfoot in the snow would be really cool too, because we thought the weather helps us kind of hide our creature a little bit, but it also adds this element of not only do we have like Bigfoot to worry about, but we're also like this storm, we have this whole element to the plot with the winter storm and how it gets over here.
Yeah.
And so anybody who's familiar with a Donner Party knows that it can be really bad the higher up you go. But so we'll probably release that in the summer, because even though it's Bigfoot in the snow, Bigfoot films do really well in the summer. That's kind of when everybody who's buying stuff or adding things to streamers, they want them in the summertime.
Yeah.
The first Tahoe Joe we did actually released on New Year's or
Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it got a lot of views, which was really cool. But then I noticed there was like a big taper off until the summer of this year, when it kind of went up again and went crazy again.
Gotcha.
And it's because most people associate Bigfoot with camping and, so they with summertime.
Yeah.
So hopefully by next summer, that one will be ready to go out there. And then I can't really say what it is, but Mike and I will be venturing to the Great Smoky Mountains, doing that whole acting on location thing for another project that is connected with the Horror Dads thing.
Nice.
So I'll be on exclusively as a producer, but Mike will be in there as an actor for it. And so we'll have that to deal with. And then to deal with, I don't know why I made that sound so bad. We'll have that to do. Yeah, right. It's darn it, we got to go to Tennessee for 2 weeks. And then we'll probably start working on that original project that I was talking about earlier, where we'll just figure that one out. That one's going to be a little more of a challenge. I have a very interesting location I have to come up with, so I'm sort of putting some feelers out now to see if I can find somewhere to shoot this thing. It primarily takes place around a bridge, and finding a bridge that you can film on that's not actively being used is rough because
Yeah.
it can't be like a little tiny bridge. It's got to be a pretty decent sized bridge. So we got some work to do on that. But we're busy. We've got a lot of stuff to do.
Good.
And he's probably going to pick up some roles in between, too. Mike is also, just to throw it out there, part of the Dark Corner Haunt going on. So if you want to go see
great.
him in action,
Yep.
hit up the Haunt.
That's right, Reginald Dark Lane.
Reginald
It
Dark
is.
Lane.
It is my mall, the Dark Lane Mall.
Okay.
Yeah. So right now it's going on at the National Bowling Stadium in downtown Reno.
If anybody wants to know more, we actually had Holly on here to explain it a little bit. Go
Nice.
back and listen to the episode. But that's awesome. I know it's coming out, and it sounds really interactive and fun.
Yeah. So we're open. Right now it's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and then we're open on Halloween as well. Halloween
Nice.
is our last operating night,
Great.
and it's from 6 p.m. to midnight.
Awesome.
So
Well,
use code ROCK for $2 off.
you heard it. Well, guys, thank you for coming in here, explaining everything, giving us some details about the stories and all of the movies that you guys have. Before we get you out of here, go ahead and promote the socials one more time, where you want people to find you, watch things, where they can watch all your movies, things like that.
Yeah, so Horror Nerd Productions on Instagram, Facebook, Horror Dads Productions over on Twitter. We also have YouTube, Horror Nerd Productions and Horror Dads Productions both have YouTube channels. There's some cross promotion on there with things you can see. All of our films are available for free on Tubi. Tubi's available on pretty much every single device that you can think of: Xbox, PlayStation, Fire Stick, smart TVs, computers, phones. It's all ad-based, so you will have old school commercials in between, so just be ready for that. We also have the Horror Nerd Productions store, and that link is at the Instagram page in the bio, where you can buy all of our films on physical media. We've got Blu-rays and DVDs, and yeah, that's it.
All right.
That's
great.
all of it.
Well, you guys heard it here. Do all of that. For us over here, like, follow, subscribe. Stephen Longley, Longley's Line, Light Styles Studio. We'll talk to you guys next week.